Thank you, everybody, for showing up. I'm really happy to introduce Tim Brooks from DU. Got a really great conversation around how do you manage something as complex as the 2012 presidential debate. So thank you, Tim.
So thanks for having me. This was an incredible project, but I think you'll find that it's a lot about people and process as well, which is probably one of the biggest takeaways that I think we had from this project. So ask questions, interrupt. I got a ton of pictures, which I think are really the fun part because you can kind of see some of the things we had to do. So this is definitely an insider's perspective of a project like this. And I'm going to start by saying that this is one of those kinds of projects where the scope is never anchored, okay? The schedule will not change under any circumstances. You don't reschedule a presidential debate. It just happens the date that they say it's going to happen. And when it's all said and done, there are so many things that can happen that are out of your control. So literally the upfront planning around, you're literally taking a risk management approach because you don't know what's going to happen. Okay, and we'll talk in a little more detail. So first, I know that your team does a lot of project management. You do it very, very well. And I thought I knew project management before I did this project. I'm PMP certified. I've done like 15,000 plus hours of project management. And I thought I knew project management until I did this one. And I realized how naive we all were. So have you ever had one of those? You say, oh boy, I thought I knew this. This is throwing me for a loop. So this is this. But we had a lot of takeaways from this. So this is kind of funny, I think. It's just like anytime we're trying to do something, or maybe we want to stop drinking, or maybe we have anger management, there's always some step-by-step process, right? So let me tell you about the step-by-step process that the University of Denver went through. And I have to step back 1 second before I get into this. I started this job in December 1st of 2011. Okay, within my first month of being at DU, I learned that we were going to host the presidential debate. Not a word of this came up that we were candidate during the interview process. Okay. And I also found out the same week that we're investigating opening a medical school. Okay, so those two bombs were dropped on me within my first week of starting this job. So, yeah, exactly. Oh, by the way, so fun stuff. So anyway, obviously it's an honor to host a presidential debate. So step one, yeah, we're all that in a bag of chips. We're it, yeah, we win, right? But then you quickly go to step two, is oh crap, we really got to make this happen, okay? And then we did, you kind of calm down, you take a breath, you pull the team together, and you realize, you know what, we can do this. Well, at this point, we have to do this, okay? Because we've already paid the CPD. I don't know if you know that. The universities have to pay the Commission on Presidential Debates to host a debate. So usually what happens is anywhere from 10 to 15, maybe a dozen universities pitch to host this every year. And they select 4. And then there's usually a 5th that's an alternative. Usually the 5th is always one that has done it before because they're typically already have the infrastructure in place. So they have 3 presidential debates, 1 vice presidential that are all hosted by a university. And this process started back in about 1982, I think, is when the government handed off the management of the debates to the CPD. So it's obviously a nonpartisan organization that does this. So anyway, at this point we're like, okay, we can do this, we can figure this out. We've already paid them $1.65 million for the honor, so let's figure this out, okay? So at some point, you realize we need a support system, okay? We need to figure this out. As you start digging in, you're realizing this is not just about DU. This is much, much bigger, okay? And I think that was one of the greatest lessons learned, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So then your 5th step, feeling a little better, Zen starting to come in a little bit. This is a university-wide, citywide, regional event with the right partners and integrated planning. we will succeed. So that's the 5-step process. There's a lot of micro steps in there, but we'll just kind of leave it at that. But that's really kind of, from a team dynamic standpoint, what the university had to go through to kind of take it to the next step. So we sat there and thought about, this is pretty complex, right? As the chief technology officer, I wasn't really comfortable that we could use all of our own infrastructure for something this big. We have a great network. I think our backbone at the time was 4 gig across, gig out to the desktop. So it's a pretty decent network. We supported, quality of service and things like that and multimedia. Our thought though was the security on this has to be top notch. And universities have pretty secure networks, but we're not exactly known for being locked down, okay? Because there's that whole, freedom of research and all that kind of stuff, which makes sense. So we decided that we were going to build a standalone overlay network. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We knew that we were going to design it for now, for specifically what we needed to meet the CPD specifications, but we also wanted to be prepared for other media-rich events in the future. So it was a opportunity. So overall goal was let's meet and exceed what the CPD had. A little naive at first, to be honest with you, because what you first get from them is kind of a rough document. He said and an example would be you need to provide print, duplication, copy services for both campaigns and the CPD. Pretty nebulous, right? So, but anyway, we actually use these following guidelines. Obviously, when you're doing a project, you have to have your value statements in there. So this is kind of what we thought about. For us, quality above all else. Okay, 2, this had to be a fully redundant network. 3, we don't have a ton of money. I mean, we're relatively lean, like you guys operate very lean here, so it had to be a cost-effective way of doing it. And number 4, how can we leverage this to do other things we need to do on campus? How can we reuse the investment in what we're doing now? For us, though, we made it clear. We made it clear to our business partners, to the whole team, to the staff and everyone that number 1 is, I never ever use the term that failure is not an option, because I never wanted to use the term failure. So literally, what I said was success is our only option. Okay? And I know that sounds like the same thing, which literally it is, but you just take the word failure out, because it's not possible. I mean, the reputation of the university. So I said, listen, don't worry about cost first. Worry about what's the best way to build this, provide it, support it, so that it is absolutely rock solid. Then we'll look at costs and cost effectiveness, reusability. So I think that did have had an impact. So, and one thing we didn't do, by the way, we did not do RFPs for the work. Okay, we did not go out and say, okay, 4 companies bid on building this core network. The reason we didn't do that is we wanted to take cost out of the equation. We wanted to focus on quality. And
so was this developed with your external partners?
this
or
was
this
actually
prior to rolling out?
when this rolled out, it was primarily the internal team. Now, I'm going to focus a lot on the technology piece of the project. The overall project was much, much bigger.
Okay.
Event services, the facilities management. So, but we had to tie into all those plans, and I'll kind of talk about that.
Okay.
This was more internal to the IT organization because we were responsible for making this happen. So this was kind of what I talked with the team. I get a sense, though, that all the organizations, because we met weekly, and in the last 2 weeks daily, as the whole institution. So we had people from facilities management, from events planning, from marketing and communications. You kind of get the idea. We had student and faculty representation, IT, and we would plan as a team. And we actually rolled all our plans into one plan.
Okay.
Okay, so we felt like, and I made it clear to the people around that table that, I'm not gonna argue about cost on this.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, trust me, we're gonna find cost-effective ways of doing this, but if we haven't solved the quality issue, then it doesn't make any sense to talk about dollars at this point. And that was kind of a broad brush across the whole
Okay.
institution. So that's a great
Yeah,
question.
real quick, what kind of time frame are we looking at from the time you knew you were gonna do it till the date it was gonna happen?